Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Salutations. Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Podcast Network with your host, Ryan Holloway. It is officially cold outside. It's December 1st, and it's cold. It's very cold. I feel like Jon Snow, like not just in the sense of him being out there where it's cold in Game of Thrones, but in the sense of my last name should be Snow because it's cold. And I know some of you are rolling your eyes like, he in California, he's on the beach. No, I'm cold. It's like 61 degrees outside. I'm freezing. I don't know what to do. I'm going to call the Coast Guard. I have a very interesting show for you guys today. I have a very special guest, Dan Nicholson Jr. He is the owner and CEO of Cashline. I'm going to interview him. I'm going to go ahead and have him pop on, give us some information about his business, about how it started. He's also going to give you guys some picks this weekend to construct your fantasy lines right. I know a lot of you guys right here just picking teams willy-nilly, just inserting players randomly, thinking you know what you're doing. Dan is going to give you some advice. He is a professional, and I think that it's going to be a rewarding experience for you because I know a lot of you guys maybe just, I feel like a lot of you don't know what you're doing. It's going to be a valuable interview. Hang around for that. I'm also going to keep it in Ohio, and I'm going to talk about Cleveland. Talk about the Cavs winning 10 straight games. It's not being talked about. Why? Because LeBron is amazing. LeBron is so amazing that we just don't talk about it. We're just used to it. We're used to LeBron just having 30 and destroying people and playing hellacious defense all over the court and basically just running amok. LeBron's like the sun. The sun goes up, it goes down. We don't worry about it. Before it goes up, some of us go to the gym, some of us get ready for work. Then it goes down, we go night-night, depending on your schedule. But the sun's this amazing thing. It's 27 million degrees. Keeps us warm, dictates what we do during our day. We have a whole daylight saving time around it, unless you're like Arizona, I guess. But LeBron's like that. He's the sun, and we just whatever. It's just the sun. It's just 27 million degrees. It doesn't affect my day. So I'm gonna talk about LeBron, give them some credit. I'm also gonna ask you whether or not you feel like Carmelo should be benched because it's about that time where we got all these players together, and maybe we may need some changes, possibly. But Carmelo being benched is gonna be like, will it be like Eli getting benched? I feel like it kind of will be. Not because Carmelo has 2 championships, but just because Carmelo is kind of, he's respected in the league. And if you bench him, I just think things are different. If you say, hey, bro, see, we're going to need you to just sit there. We're not saying that you can't start. We just think it's best if when the game starts, you're not in the lineup. You don't, not that you're not going to be a starter anymore. We're just saying that when we start the game, when we start it, you're not going to be in that lineup. So, and I'm going to get to all that. This is where we're at right now. The Cavs have won 10 straight games. 10. So LeBron is putting on a show. The other night, Dennis Schroeder, the guard from the Atlanta Hawks, he was putting on a show. That's what he does. Dennis Schroeder scored 3 straight layups on Jose Calderon. LeBron wasn't having it, so they switched the assignment. Apparently, the teammates rode up on LeBron. I was like, hey, LeBron, do you think it's possible you could take this assignment? And LeBron was like, yeah, man, I can do it. Everybody fist bump and put their rings together, like on Captain Planet, when all the kids request Captain Planet. That's a dated reference. And then LeBron just went out and played D. I don't think that's what happened. I feel like it was like in a pickup game where someone gets beat. Pum, pum, pum. And you look at him, hey, man, hey, switch. There's no question about it. There's no meeting, no collective gathering, nothing like that at all. So Dennis Schroeder scored 3 straight layups on Jose Calderon. Dennis Schroeder had 17 points in the first half. LeBron put the 6'8" clamps on him. And suddenly, Dennis Schroeder ended the game with only 10 more points. We also had a Dwayne Wade sighting. Dwayne Wade had 19. It's hard to see him on a back-to-back. It wasn't back-to-back, but if Dwayne Wade has 5 one game, next game he's going to have 19. If he has 19 one game, next game he's going to have 5. This was a game when he had 19. Dwayne Wade was ready. This is all among us getting news that Iman Shumpert's going to be out. LeBron just keeps going. He just keeps pushing. Lastly, we also had an IT sighting. Beep, beep. Beep, beep, an IT sighting. He was during a pregame. He was in the pregame. He's not quite ready to go game speed yet, but he was in the pregame. So the Cavs are, I'm going to say, low-key getting exciting again. They're getting there right now. LeBron's averaging 27.1. Now, if you look at like LeBron's averages and how many points he's had over the course of the decade and a half he's been in the league, 27 is one of his solid numbers. He only had more than that in like 4 other seasons. So LeBron's playing LeBron level basketball, and I just feel like they probably got to win about 15 more for the national media to say, "Oh my God, the Cavs are back." The Cavs are back. They're back, and everyone should be afraid. Because once these players come back, we're going to have more problems. I'm not going to say they're playing better since Derrick Rose left, but I'm just going to say that LeBron doesn't seem like LeBron noticed. Like LeBron's like, hey, didn't we have another, what, was there another, oh, wait, aren't you supposed to be dressed? IT's like, no, I'm hurt. Oh, I thought, all right, whatever, 30. That's how it works. LeBron just keeps on pushing, especially after the ejection. I want to say when he got ejected, when they were up 20 at home and he had to go to the locker room, I feel like he sat down and was watching the television with the most anger. Like, if they lose this lead, I will pack my family up and drive to LA tonight. They better not lose this lead. I'm going to fire on someone. And I bet no one wanted to hear his mouth. So I feel like Tyronn Lue was like, yo, if this league gets small, I'm going to put on some basketball shorts. That night, Kevin Love was like, whoa. I'm not going to the locker room losing this lead. So what Kevin Love do? Kevin Love had 38. I think LeBron was like, oh, I guess you guys are pretty serious about this basketball thing, huh? Okay, fine. That's what we're going to do. Next thing you know, next night, Dwayne Wade has 19, Jay Crowder has 15 points, and Isaiah Thomas is walking around pregame like he might want to play basketball again. So the Cavs are back. All that Philly noise and Celtics noise, y'all, I think y'all need to take the brakes and just pump them on that. Pump your brakes on that. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I get back, I'm going to have professional sports handicapper Dan Nicholson online. He's going to tell you guys how to get your lineups right, tell you guys a little bit about the Cashline group that you should be a part of, and he's also going to give you some strategies of which directions to go in. You guys can't be out here all willy-nilly just putting anybody in your lineup, just buying random people. It doesn't work that way. There's a science to this. There's a system. There's a professional that's going to help you out. I will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast with your host, Ryan Holloway. We are produced by the GSMC Podcast Network. Today, I have a very special guest from Alliance, Ohio. We have Dan Nicholson Jr. CEO of the Cashline, a professional daily sports handicapper. How are you doing today, Dan?
Oh, I'm doing great. Really blessed and humbled to even be on the show, and wanted to thank the GSMC family and the Golden State Media Company family for even having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, we greatly appreciate you calling in. Greatly appreciate it. So, just if you don't mind, can you tell us about Cashline, what it is for our listeners that don't know?
Oh yeah, definitely. The Cashline is basically it's a stress relief family environment for people who love sports, and it's a daily escape from our everyday lives. The Cashline is it's an honest and loyal fantasy sports group. We deal mostly with DraftKings and FanDuel. For instance, the last 10 days we've profited probably over $3,800. So we've been doing pretty good here recently. I mostly teach bankroll management because at the end of the day it's still gambling, and you don't want to bet anything that's going to affect your everyday life. You know what I mean? And it's supposed to be fun and having fun with this thing, and it's not supposed to be. If you're stressed out about it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You know, because it's supposed to be totally fun and for the love of sports and things like that. And I teach lineup construction and picks of the day. I do a weekly podcast on the sports, NBA and NFL and things like that. Like my dad always told me, he told me to find something that you love to do and make that your career. And it took me 40 years, but I believe I'm here now.
That's cool. That's cool. Long as you found it. Well, so what got, if you don't mind me asking, what got you into handicapping?
Well, me and a couple of my friends, one of my friends, Sean Jones, we started messing around with the fantasy sports, but we was mostly messing with the yearly leagues, and that was before the daily thing really got popular. And once we got into that, it just took off. You know what I mean? It was one of them things because I love sports. I watch sports every day anyway, so it's nothing that was out of my realm or I had to do special and things like that. And it took off from there, and I was in a group, and one of my good friends, Ed Porter, asked me, he said, man, I think you should try to do your own thing. You're really good at this. And at first I kind of backed off of it and was kind of scared to venture off into that venture. But once I started to look at it and think about it and then look at the numbers, and I've been doing well. And the group started with 4 people, and now we're at almost 200. Started with 2 Twitter followers, and now we're at about 700. Okay. And things have really been going good. It's been a blessing for me and my family and things like that.
Dan, that's great. That's great. I heard you say, I just heard you say you guys handle bankroll management. I've never heard of anybody that I guess offers advice talk about bankroll management. That's a great plus. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. The bankroll management part of this is probably the most important part of it. Because say you have $100 in your account, you only want to bet probably $5 to $10 a night, if that. Mm-hmm. Because you're going up against a big industry, a big $1 billion industry, and you don't, like I said, you don't want to do anything that's going to hurt your regular life and hurt your family life. It's supposed to be fun and a good time and things like that. That's why I employ the guys to enter certain tournaments like single entry tournaments where that details where you put one line in and everybody in that tournament can only put one line in. Okay. Now there's a lot of tournaments there where people can put up to 150 lines in or 20, 40, 50 lines in. And I try to employ my guys not to get into those tournaments, because when you got people out there that's putting in 150 lines and you're only putting one line in, what's the odds of that? You know what I mean? What's the odds of winning in that? And one thing I pride myself on is not being boastful. I feel I'm good at this. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of things go on in my life and go on in my life, and the one thing that I feel I'm truly good at and confident at is this daily fantasy sports. And I research all day, I research all night, and like I said, it's something I love, so it's not something I'm forcing myself to do, because I love sports. So my dad brought me up in sports, and I've watched sports and listened to sports. I remember listening to sports with my grandfather, Albert Hawkins, when I was young, listening to the Indians on the radio before I even really knew what was going on. So it's a beautiful thing to combine something you love and actually have an opportunity to profit from it at the same time.
That's great. That's great. I watched a few of your YouTube videos. It looks like you got a solid amount of information. I saw that you cover all the sports. Like, is that is that overwhelming? I mean, you said you love it, so I guess it's not hard. But is that Is there a challenge in keeping up with everything? I saw you do football, baseball, and basketball. How's that?
Oh yeah, it definitely can get overwhelming if you let it. The football is probably the easiest as far as the research and things like that, because you're just dealing with maybe Sunday, basically Sunday, but you have your Monday night game and Thursday night game, but that's just one game. But it can be overwhelming. Now the basketball, the NBA, is that the 82-game season, so it's on every night, and that can be somewhat overwhelming. But like I say, I love doing it. Now the baseball is a whole different monster.
Right.
The baseball is a whole different monster with the amount of games and the amount of research you have to do daily. So hopefully, I did it by myself last year, but hopefully this season coming up, I'll be in a position where I can have a couple people help me with the research and things like that. But the cash line's taking off, man, and I feel truly blessed. When I envisioned this thing, I didn't envision it going this far, and it's really taken off. My hometown's really grasping onto it and showing me a great support. The town of Alliance, Ohio, they're really supporting me. My family supporting me, and like I say, it's been a beautiful thing, and it's shocking. Sometimes it's humbling, even to be on the phone with you and dealing with Mr. Tate and the Golden State Media Company. It's a real humbling experience, and I really appreciate it.
Well, we're greatly happy for you. I'm really interested in this business after just watching a few of your videos, watching you give out the picks. Also, I appreciate your honesty. Also, I mean, you said on one video I watched, you said if anyone only tells you they're winning all the time, you didn't say this verbatim, but if anyone tells you they're winning all the time, they're lying. You're gonna lose. It is gambling. I appreciate your honesty and candidness. What made you feel that way about? What made you talk that way about gambling?
Exactly, because I feel you have to know that going in.
Right.
This $1 billion business is what it is for a reason. You know what I mean? And that's why even more importantly is the bankroll management, because you have to be able to understand that you're going to lose at this thing. There's a lot of people playing this thing, especially when you get into the NFL and you see that prize amount on the side. You see a $1.5 million prize and $300,000 prize. There's a reason that prize is that high. That's just because there's 100,000 people in that tournament.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why I employ my guys to stick with the bankroll management, and then actually, and when you win, that's the hardest time to stick to bankroll management, because a lot of times when you win, you feel like you're on the top of the world and you get that big head and you want to make that big bet and you jump into that big tournament. And one thing I learned about this fantasy world, it will humble you quickly. It will humble you quickly. As soon as you think you're on the top and you're the best in the world, and you look up your lineup in the morning and you lost it all. So that's why, like I say, bankroll management, single entry tournaments, and things like that, and staying in that realm is probably one of the most important things as far as about this thing. And like I say, keeping it fun, man.
Yeah. Keeping
it fun and not. There shouldn't be anything stressful. There shouldn't be anything stressful about it, you know. And it's a beautiful thing if you do it the right way. And like I said, my group, the Cashline, we're a real honest group, upfront group. There's a lot of things that go on in the fantasy world, but anytime you're dealing with $1 billion business, there's going to be things like that happen. So we pride ourselves on being honest and being upfront with each other. And when the new guys come in the group, we always welcome them, and we put the "Welcome to the Cashline" post up, and the guys go to it and they say, "Welcome to the Cashline. You're in the right place," and things like that. And me, as far as starting this thing with 2 and 4 people, it's a beautiful thing to see when you got hundreds of people now starting to comment and follow you, so to say, and things like that.
Seriously, that's great. It sounds like something you're really passionate about. My question, when you say the group, I thought I read somewhere on your YouTube page, it's a Facebook group, right? It's a private Facebook group. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I have the Twitter page. Okay. I'll be talking about towards the end. I have the Twitter page and a Facebook group. I'm on YouTube also. Okay. I have a website, but I'm actually in the process of upgrading it, because with the overwhelming response and the things that I'm getting like that, I had one of the smaller website sites, and so I'm going to have to upgrade that. But yeah, most of our traffic is through the Facebook group. Okay. Because that's a private group that we get into. You join the Facebook group, I put you in the group chat, and every day I post things, I post plays, I do weekly podcasts and things on sports, or if we have something really big come up, I usually try to do a podcast or news that I want the guys to know about, like per se, like this show here. You know what I mean? I let all the guys in, let our guys know, man, make sure you tune in. This is a great spot for us and a great avenue for us to even be traveling down. And I believe deep in my core. I believe deep in my core that the Cashline can wreak havoc on this fantasy world, and because a lot of people didn't think we'd come this far. When I had four followers, people were like, "No, that's never going to work."
Right.
This you're from Alliance, Ohio. That's never going to work. But people are starting to see us now. They're starting to see us now.
Right. Would you say when I hear fantasy, or probably maybe when most people hear fantasy, we instantly think football. But it sounds like this shift in the basketball has gotten really popular over the last several years. Would you say that's because of the internet or just more basketball popularity? What would you say that's from for fantasy basketball?
I believe because when this thing first started, most people was in the yearly leagues. You know what I mean? Where you pick your team and you go through the whole year, and then you get, if you finish in a certain amount of place, you cash at the end of the year and things like that. And I think the draw is to every night's a new night. Every night's a new night to win. Every day is a different lineup and different picks and just the excitement. And especially when you get a group of guys together from different places and things like that. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about race. It's just a bunch of guys in there having fun, guys and women, having fun and going over sports and something that they love anyway. And like I said, a stress release. It's a stress release from your regular day life. And things like that. That's
cool. I didn't think about it like that. I mean, it makes sense when you say versus people just only being able to play on like a Sunday or Monday or random or possibly on Thursday. Basketball is on every single day, so you always get that new day to try again. So I could see how that could be a benefit, definitely.
Yeah, and it's somewhat I don't want to call it a lottery ticket, but it's somewhat a chance of winning every night. You know what I mean? And like I say, if you employ your bankroll management the right way, it's a way to win every night. Every night, they call it in the fantasy world, they call it when you get a sweat going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you got a good lineup going on and you got two players left and you're up $1,000 and that's what they call the sweat. And it can be addictive. It can be addictive. And I know I keep saying it, but that's why I keep preaching it to my guys, man. Bankroll management. Have fun at this, man. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, that I like that. I like that you keep talking about the fun because, again, like I watched your videos, I watched some other videos just to try to kind of get an idea. And it's when you hear people talk about it, it's always about the money, and the way they talk about it, they talk about it in a way to make people stressed out. And your analogy to lottery made sense because it should be fun. You should sit down. You should care if you win or lose, but your mortgage shouldn't be on the line, right?
Exactly. Definitely. If you're doing that, you're doing it the whole wrong way. If you're going to do that, you might as well just go down to the local casino. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because, like I say, if you already love sports, you're going to be watching the games anyway. So why not watch the game and hope Antonio Brown catches a 80-yard touchdown?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And he's on your line. And like I said, my goal in this is to change the lives of my mom and my family and do things for my children that I've never been able to do. And it started from a small dream, but it's becoming reality now. And it's humbling. It's humbling. It's humbling. And that's a word that I probably never used earlier in my life and really didn't know the true meaning of it. But it's truly humbling and things like that. And seeing the guys in the group, sometimes I just sit back and watch them talk and watch them go between each other talking about picks and things like that. And I sit back and I look and I say, man, I started that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
Growth is an incredible thing. I like the way you talk about your team a lot and the guys around you. It sounds like you've put together a really stable circle.
Oh yeah, it's a good group. And one thing I learned, sometimes I had to take my feelings out of it because you'll get close to guys and this and that, and everybody has different life situations.
Right.
So someone would leave, and I would leave my group, and I'd be like hunting them down, like, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? And you have to understand that it's just like when you're the CEO or owner of any business, people are going to come and go. People have their own life situations or own decisions and they feel certain ways about certain things. So once I let that go because there came a period where I was getting stressed out and I was like, man, why is people leaving or why isn't taking off the way it is? And I took a step back and said, I'm just going to have fun with this thing. I'm going to enjoy it. And it shows through the group. It shows through the group. It shows through their posts. their comments. You can tell everybody's positive, everybody's confident, and we're starting to win now. And we're starting to win now. We're starting to get recognized around this fantasy world, and so people are really coming in and enjoying it and having fun with it, and that's my whole key to it.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Dan, so what we're going to do, if you have a little bit more time, I've got to take a quick commercial break. And when I get back, can we do some more? We're going to do some picks and tell me how you feel about the NBA season. Would that be okay?
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Perfect.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network with your host, Ryan Holloway, on the frostiest December 1st. I am being joined by Dan Nicholson Jr., the Cashline CEO and professional daily fantasy sports handicapper. How you doing today, Dan?
Oh, doing great, feeling good.
All right. So last segment we talked a little bit about the history of the company, and how you guys got started. And now we're going to go into some actual skills that you guys do. Can you tell me a little bit about how you guys will construct the lineup, what that takes and what that involves?
Yeah. Well, for instance, like right now we're heavy basketball, NBA, because it's every night, and then on Sundays I pretty much focus that whole day, Saturday evening to Sunday morning on our NFL picks. But say, for instance, in the NBA, you have 8 picks. You know, you have your point guard, your shooting guard. It's just like you're the general manager.
Right.
You're basically picking the players that you like and picking and building a team and putting a team together. But the thing about it is you can't pick LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Paul George and put them all on one same lineup. There's a salary cap involved, so you really have to put your general manager's hat on and find value on lower owned players. Say, for instance, like last night we had LeBron playing, who had a good game, and Antetokounmpo, who had a good game, which I had on the line together. But it's more about, everybody knows that. Everybody in the fantasy world knows to play LeBron James. Everybody knows to play James Harden. But the key to this thing is finding that low owned person that's cheaper. Like last night, say a guy named from Utah named Alec Burks went crazy last night. He went crazy last night, and he was probably 1% owned. So the people that had Alec Burks in their lineup, and you match that up with a LeBron and a Greek Freak and a Ben Simmons and things like that, that's how you put a good lineup in, because everybody knows the top players. Everybody knows who's in a good matchup that day and things like that. Say, for instance, like yesterday, Joel Embiid was out. So that told everybody, like we're telling in the group, we're going to Ben Simmons. We're going to Ben Simmons because his usage rate goes through the roof when Joel Embiid is not on the floor.
Okay.
So if Joel Embiid is out the game the whole game, we're playing Ben Simmons, and we try to do that somewhat as a group and go over our picks all day long and find that value and find that low owned person that's going to go off, because that's how you separate yourself as far as in these tournaments. Because, like I said, everybody knows to play LeBron James. Everybody knows that. But who knows to play Alec Burks?
Right.
You know, and that's the difference between being that guy that loses your money or wins $10 or wins 10,000. You know what I mean? So that's what we're searching for, and I research all day, and I bring every piece of research I got, and I bring it back to the table, to the group, and we chop it up. We call our little sessions the chop up session, and I put it all on the table for them, and we chop it up, and we try to and we we try to put good lines in, similar lines, but everybody has their own, have to have their own line, different line. And that's the beauty of having a group with different people from different places. You know what I mean? I got people from Africa. I got people from Germany. We got people, a lot of people right here in Alliance, Ohio. We got people, you know, from pretty much all over the country. Just, I mean, I'm not saying huge amounts of people, but we have people. And when you bring all those people together with different mindsets and different thoughts and things like that, and then when you have like people with me being in Alliance, Ohio, anything Cavs, I pretty much know. You know what I mean? So I can tell you how I feel about my Cavs tonight, or if I think this is a good matchup or a bad matchup. And a lot of times we follow the Vegas lines really close, because that's one of the most secure sites as far as predicting game totals and things like that. Because if you're doing this thing, you want to try to stay in the highest projected games. Like if there's a game that's projected for 203 points tonight, and then you got someone I know you know about, the Golden State Warriors,
right,
and you got them going up against someone, and that game is projected for 232 games, through 232 points, you pretty much want to pick more players out of that high projected game, because it's more points, and it's just, you know, basic math, 1 + 1. You know what I mean? If there's more projected points coming out of that game, you want to have as many people out of there as possible without overloading. You know what I mean?
Got it. So you guys take a lot of the point total into mind, because obviously if a team is playing more defense, then they probably wouldn't put up points. How does that work for a team? How does that work for a team with the Celtics when they have a high rating? They have a high defensive rating, but they have a high offensive rating. Even though Kyrie is a monster with the ball, would you not want to play against the Celtics team, or only take Kyrie? How do you guys look at the schedule for a team like that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, like that. Like the perfect example of that was last night. Now, last night we had Philly at Boston. Boston was favored by 8.5. The projection on the game was 211 points, and the game ended up 108 Boston and 97 Philly. Now that's a low point total. And the thing about it is, you don't really want to play people against Boston right now. Okay. Now, last year you could pick on Boston. Before Kyrie got there, last year one of our staples was we attacked Boston's rebounding. So what we did then is, anytime a team was playing Boston, we would play the bigs from the other team, because they were terrible at rebounding.
Okay.
But you can't do that this year. You know what I mean? It's a whole different landscape with Kyrie coming there. They're one of the best defensive teams, if not the best defensive team in the league. So you don't want to play people against Boston. Now, there's certain people that are matchup proof. Yeah. You know, you got your LeBron James, your Russell Westbrooks, and like last night I played Ben Simmons, and I played, because of Embiid being out, I played Amir Johnson at the center. But I didn't play Amir Johnson because I love Amir Johnson. I played him because his price was like $3,400. And I knew he was going to be starting, so he was going to get enough rebounds, and he was going to fall into enough fantasy points to make up. But that $3,400 price, or $3,700 price, that allows me the money in my salary cap to be able to pay up to a LeBron, to be able to pay up to an Antetokounmpo. But in general, no, you don't want to play people against the best defensive team in the league, and that's where you follow your BVPs and things like that, prior history and things like that. How has this player played against this player the last 5 to 10 times they've played? So that'll give you somewhat of a good thought pattern about how you want to attack that slate. But no, you don't really want to mess with Boston too much as far as going against them. But like you said about Kyrie also, Kyrie Irving, he can go off against anybody at any time. Now, only time I really play Boston players is if one's out. Now, say Jaylen Brown is hurt, then I'll play Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier and Kyrie, or if Jason Tatum's out. But the one thing about Boston, they're so even keel all the way through. They all basically going to get you 30, 35 fantasy points. Right. Now, like we say, Kyrie can go off on anybody at any given moment. But in general, you know what I mean? You want to find that matchup. You want to find someone that's out on the team and who's going to be replacing them. Or not even that, who's out on the team and who's the next best player. Like when Embiid's out, I didn't run straight to Amir Johnson. I more looked at Ben Simmons, because that usage is going to more go to him because he's the best player on the team.
Okay. I like that you said that your Facebook group is like, you guys have a bunch of different guys all over the region. I noticed in basketball, there's maybe like a seventh man that only people know regionally who is really good. Or even if it's a team that's not as popular from like a smaller media area, they're not known about like nationwide. Like Will Barton for the Nuggets last night had 37 points. It seems like if you have a group of people from all over the U.S., you know about all these things that we don't hear about on the larger sports networks.
Exactly, and that's something that you brought up, Will Barton, because he was one of my best plays last night.
Right.
He was one of my best plays last night, and I was looking good going into that last game, but that Alex Burks thing, he killed the slate. And sometimes you have things they call like slate killers, you know what I mean, where someone comes out of nowhere that hardly no one has, and he goes off. You know what I mean? And you have no control over that because, if anybody would have asked me in the group yesterday about Alex Burks, now one thing I try not to do is take someone off a pick. I tell people, if you like somebody, play him. If you like somebody and you feel good about them, play him. But with the Alex Burks coming off the bench, the minutes he was getting and things like that, and he wasn't projected as a starter or anything like that, I probably would have, like I say, I hate telling people. I learned that early in this because there was a time where I would tell people, no, don't play him. Don't play him. And then you wake up in the morning and you find out that player that you told someone not to play, he went off that night.
Yeah.
So I learned not to do that, and I always tell people, man, if you like somebody, believe in it, play it. And if anything, what I'm saying to you, if I say I don't like that person, build a whole new line and without that person and try it that way. But I've came also telling people not to play people. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, you don't want to have that blame. waking up the next morning, waking up to those bad text messages.
Especially if someone's betting larger amounts. You know what I mean? I don't want to cost somebody $10,000 because I told them not to play Alex Burks. You know?
Yeah. The how have you been feeling about OKC? I would think that going into fantasy basketball, you would have had high hopes for them, but it's with them having the third worst offensive rating behind the Bulls and the Kings. Has that been a surprise to you, or were you able to see that pretty early, like before all of us saw it?
It kind of surprised me because, when the trade first happened, I was looking at that like, oh man, that's a stack waiting to happen. You know what I mean? I could put Westbrook, Carmelo, and Paul George on the same ticket, and I could try to find some value somewhere else. But
right.
I feel like all three of them, but it's really not working out that way because, like last year, Russell Westbrook. Now remember, like I said, the salary cap is $50,000. Now, Russell Westbrook last year, it was hard to get him under $12,000 because of the triple-double. He was by himself. He had to do everything, and he was averaging high triple-doubles, not just triple-doubles. I mean, they were 28, 14, and 12.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were high triple-doubles. But the thing that happened with Carmelo and George came in, it's the sharing of the ball and things like that. So none of them are really going off. So Russell Westbrook's prices came down to about a manageable place where we can play him again because they still had him priced up like it was last year. But the one thing I notice is when they're spreading that ball around like that, it's almost what I said with Boston. It's like it's hard to pick which one's going to go off that night because, this night Russell Westbrook will go off, the next night Paul George will go off and things like that. So I'm more look for more favorable lineups with a star that's by itself. Like, say, a LeBron for Cleveland, Antetokounmpo with Milwaukee, even with Kawhi Leonard out. LaMarcus Aldridge has been a great play lately. You know what I mean? Right. And people like that. So that's pretty much how I look at it. But I know what you mean. When that team was first put together, it looked like it was going to be something special. And I'm surprised about their offense. I don't know if it has anything to do with the coach, but I think they'll get it together. And once they get clicking, there's going to be a problem in that West once the playoffs start. Just because one thing about Russell Westbrook, once he gets fed up, he'll just take over.
Yeah.
He doesn't care who's on the team. You know what I mean?
That's the truth. I was going to ask you, before I went into some of your picks, I was going to ask you something about the Cavs. It sounds like, that's where you're at. You got the inside track on that. How do you feel about, not necessarily LeBron, but the players that show up around him sometimes? Like how would a Dwayne Wade work? I know the other night for their 10th straight game, Dwayne Wade had 19. So would he be a low value player because of his current skill set right now, or is he still kind of high value? How do you judge someone like him?
Now it's like with my Cavs. It's like, say for instance, like last night, LeBron, I believe he was 11.1 or 11.7, somewhere in that area. And Dwayne is around that 5,600 area. Mm-hmm. So the thing that scares me about Dwayne Wade is back-to-backs.
Yeah.
When he plays on the back-to-backs over history, he's played bad. He's an older player now. But here this year, I think he's rejuvenated, getting back with LeBron. Now, as the season goes on, that's really when it'll tell. When they're in game 40 and 50 and 60, that's where it'll tell as far as like last night. Dwayne Wade was one of the best plays on the night. I think he ended up with like 38 fantasy points. Now, in the cash line, in general fantasy, people try to get 5X. So if your price is $5,000, I'm trying to get 25 fantasy points out of you. In the cash line, I'm trying to preach 6X. I'm trying to get my guys, look for guys that can get a 6X, because that's how we're going to take a tournament down. 5X ain't going to take no tournament down unless you have one or two players that goes crazy. And you know what I mean? But if you can get a consistent 5 to 6X all the way through your lineup, that's how you take something down. And then there's, like, if you find one of them $3,000 players like last night for, say, Burks, he's like 3,400, or I can't think of what his price was right off bat. But he's like, he's cheap. He's really cheap. And he got 50-some fantasy points. So he went like 12X. You know what I mean? And so that's how you take a tournament down. But as far as the rest of my Cavs, I think we're going to be okay. Especially, people are forgetting about Isaiah Thomas. And I love seeing him on that bench because he's excited. He's not just sitting there watching the game. He's not just going through the motions. And, like, when we had big plays last night, he was the first person on the floor. He was running out to half court greeting the guys, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that lets me know his passion. I know he's all in. He's seeing what Boston's doing up there. He's already upset about how that whole situation played out. So and now he sees Kyrie up there balling. So when Isaiah Thomas comes back, I think we're going to be a problem. And LeBron does this. He balances our season out. He does this, and we were terrible. We getting our stride, and now we're on like a 9-10 game win streak. And by the time the playoffs go, we'll be ready.
Yeah, I would definitely say I appreciate IT on the bench. I want to say about a month or two ago, he got a technical. He is real fired up. He gets fired up on the bench, and I feel like once you guys get that whole lineup back, I mean, LeBron's playing great basketball right now. It's not being talked about because he's so great that it ends up being boring. Like, LeBron's too good to get MVP. That's just how it is. I was going to ask you where the value is for either tonight or this weekend. What's your forecast for the weekend? What would you give the listeners?
Well, for tonight, I've done a little research on it so far. Okay. But for tonight, I was kind of waiting for that Golden State Orlando game tonight. That's projected for 227. So as of right now, I believe it's the highest projected game. And Golden State's in a lot of the highest projected games. I'm sure you know that being out there. But they're projected for 227. They're favored by 10.5 points. So you got to be careful with Golden State, though, because one thing they will do is they'll blow people out. They'll blow people out, and a lot of teams, Curry and them will be on the bench some of the fourth quarter. But one thing I noticed about Golden State is they don't mind drilling you into the ground if you let them. You know what I mean? So a lot of times Curry or Durant will be in the game, and they'll be up 20 in the fourth quarter, and they're still in the game. You know what I mean? So right now, I know they had questionable tags on them. I think they got moved up to probable. So it looks like Curry and Durant is going to play. And they're actually cheap right now. I think Curry's at somewhere around 9,000. Durant's around 9,000, and that's cheap for them. So what I was probably going to do, I was going to pair Curry and Durant, and then try to find value at around that $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 area all the way through my lineup. Because if I can take Curry and a Durant, and I can find me one $3,000 player or $3,500 player that can get me 10x, and that $3,500 will give me salary relief, which will allow me to pay $5,000, $6,000 for the rest of my lineup. And then I can find the Will Bartons and the T.J. Warrens and people like that are in good matchups, the Dwayne Wades, and hope they go off and things like that. Another matchup I was looking at is that New Orleans at Utah. Now, one thing in the fantasy world that we call our late night hammer. It's like you always want somebody in that last game. Now, your score is always your score. But for some reason, I don't know if it's a mental thing or things like that, because if you don't have nobody in that late-night game, it seems like you will get walked down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you pick a great line and your score is 320 points. That's your score, and I've done it. And you can pick a good line without having that hammer. But like I said, I don't know if it's a mental thing in the fantasy world or whatever. But you always want to have at least one person, even if he's a lower person, to at least keep you where you're at. Because there's a lot of people that roster these lineups, and a lot of people jump on them early games. They jump on them early games because they like to see their ball moving. They like to see that ball move, and they like to see their money. I'm up $800. I used to do that. My first year, I would pick a lot of people out the early games, and then I'd be able to show my friend or my woman. I'd say, look, I'm up $2,000. But by the end of the night, I'm minus. I'm not winning anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but like I said, in that last game, I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to pair Curry and Durant in one lineup, and then some other lineups. I'm going to do the Cousins and Davis thing. They're both around 10,000, and try to find the value. And then I always try to make a straight value lineup where I don't take no stars, and I take all Will Bartons and T.J. Warrens and Dwayne Wades and find those guys that are around 6,000-7,000 and put 8 of them on the same lineup and try to and they have to be in great matchups and try to get 30, 40 apiece. Because if you can get 40 apiece from 8 people that are 6,000, that are at 6K, that's $320. I mean, that's 320 fantasy points. And the goal in fantasy, in NBA, is to hit 300. It's called the 300 Club. If you can hit 300, you probably at least ain't going to lose no money. But the further up you go to 300, if you get to 325 and 350 and things like that on DraftKings, that's when you're getting ready to take down a tournament.
Okay. All right. So tonight you're looking at you like the Pelicans and you like the Warriors you like players from those squads.
Exactly. And more reason I like New Orleans, I like Cousins and Davis anyway, but I usually only pay one of them because they're so expensive. Sometimes I pair them, but because they're paying Utah, and the key to the whole Utah thing is Rudy Gobert is out. He's a defensive monster. And with him out, I think Cousins and Davis, they're going to be matched up with Derek Favors and Giannis Jerebko. So I don't think I need to say too much more about that. You know? Right.
Well, that's cool. Would you recommend for anybody that's just getting started in daily fantasy sports? Is there any advice you'd give them as far as like someone that just downloaded one of the apps? What would be the first step that you would give to them?
Probably the first step I would say would be join the Cashline,
right?
And then after that, I would say, like I say, bankroll management, man, it's key. This one thing about this fantasy thing, it will humble you. I would say the second key would be single entry tournaments. You want to be in tournaments where you got an even shot at it, because this is $1 billion business. So there's guys that get into that 150 max tournament where you can put 150 lineups. And a lot of these guys are doing it on the computer. They're just generating lineups. A lot of them don't even watch sports. You know what I mean? It's almost like a poker thing. And they're generating 150 lineups. But it's not just him. It's him and 10 of his friends if they have the money to do it. He puts 150 in. His friend puts 150 in. His friend puts 150 in. And then they kind of share the wealth, so to say. You know what I mean? So I would definitely say single entry tournaments, bankroll management. They have a thing on there called double ups. Say you're playing a $5 single entry tournament. Mm-hmm. You can put a $5 double up in and put that same lineup in there. Now, with the single entry tournament, that's when you're trying to take something down. That's called a GPP tournament. Okay. But with that double up all that means is if you put $5 in, all you can win is 10. But you only have to beat half the field. You know what I mean? So you don't have to worry about taking nothing down. So that way, if you lose that $5 on that single entry tournament, the odds of you coming at least in at least the top half of the field is a lot greater than trying to win something.
Okay. Is there Dan? Can you said one of your first piece of advice would be for someone to join Cashline. Can you tell them how they would join it? Would they find you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, most of our traffic for the Cashline is through the Facebook group, which is Dan Nicholson, the Cashline. And that's just a basic Facebook group request. If you can't find the Facebook group, you can personally request me, Dan Nicholson, Alliance, Ohio, just a regular Facebook request, and I'll throw you in a private chat. That's a private DFS chat. The only thing we talk about in there is fantasy sports, and and things of that nature. On Twitter, I'm at Dan_DLN Sports. And on YouTube, I'm on DLN Sports Daily Fantasy Cashline.
All right, perfect. Well, Dan, is there did you have any other pick you wanted to drop, or are those the only freebies till they join?
That's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Okay.
I was so excited about the show and trying to prep and prepare for the show. Once I get off here, I'm probably going to dive a little bit more into it. But like I say, man, that Vegas line, it doesn't let us down, and that's that 227 point total. So you want to be involved in that. And like I say, if some reason Curry and Durant is out and things like that, that's when you want to look to the other side. That's when you say, okay, well, Orlando's probably going to go off. And then you can go to the other side and go to the Orlando Magic and things like that. But that's pretty much where I'm at so far in my research for today.
Okay.
And like I said, I was so excited and humbled and blessed to be on the show. I pretty much was just trying to prepare for this.
Well, you know what? We appreciate it. And it's like you said earlier. You did say, I mean, it's super early in the day. You got the injuries. It's Friday. Players might want to go hang out this weekend. You never know. So I completely get it. It makes sense to me. Well, we greatly appreciate your time. Oh wait, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I wanted to say, yeah, definitely. Because one thing about the NBA, it's hard to make a roster early. It's hard to make a roster early because you got news coming out all day, and then when it locks at 7:00, from 6 to 7, you have to be by your phone. You have to be by your Twitter.
Oh, wow.
Because news is coming out. Someone's starting. Someone's out. There's always a trick to it right before lock.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's almost like they do that to us on purpose. But I wanted to give a quick shout out if that was okay.
Oh, please go ahead, please.
I wanted to shout out to my Cashline guys and one of my good friends, EP Ed Porter, who really helped me get through this, and Sean, the first person I put a line in. To my mom and my woman for putting up with me researching every day and telling me to put my phone down and things like that. And I wanted to thank you guys at the whole Golden State Media Company and Mr. Tate especially for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's really a humbling experience and things like that. And I'm really blessed.
Well, we greatly appreciate you calling in. I'm hoping we can do it again. I wish you the best of luck tonight with the Warriors, with the Magic, with Utah, with the Pelicans, and anything else going forward. Hopefully we can talk to you again.
Okay, thank you. Cashline, baby. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Dan, take care now. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. I'm going to sign up for Cashline real quick. And then when I come back, I'm going to ask you guys whether or not Billy Donovan should be considering benching Carmelo or maybe just benching Carmelo. Be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast with your host, Ryan Holloway, presented by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm hoping you guys got a chance to go ahead and check out Cashline and get your fantasy lineups right, because if you've been out there losing money, then I just gave you a gem of an interview that should help you get right. If that won't help you get right, then I'm not 100% sure what to do. You can write your congressman. Maybe you can contact your Coast Guard, something along those lines. Not 100% sure. Or put yourself on the bench. That's the buzz around OKC. We might possibly have to bench Melo. Why, you might ask? Well, as of right now, OKC has the third worst offensive rating behind the Bulls ahead of the Bulls and the Kings. I don't have to say much about those teams and their offense. One of the reasons that they're having this lack of offensive efficiency isn't because there's too much scoring. It's not because it's not enough scoring, it's because there's not enough defense. So I got Carmelo in the game. When Carmelo gets the ball, it slows the game down. They're missing out on possessions because he has the ball a long time. And one of the common misconception is we'll just put a bunch of players on the court and then they'll all just score more points because they all average a lot of points on their own teams. So if we put all these points together, then yeah, it's a zero-sum game, right? We're good and good. No, it's not. That's not really the way that it works itself out. The issue is that when you have all three of these players on the court, all of them except for Paul George. Well, Westbrook is an unwilling cutter. He's not going to cut that often. Carmelo is not going to cut either. You got Paul George, who will cut and can score his own points. He doesn't have a problem with that. The issue is the ball just being stopped. When asked about whether or not he should be benched or there should be a lineup change, Carmelo said, hell no, not at all. We're fine, man. Like I said, it's on us to figure out if we want to be consistent. That's our biggest downfall right now. We're not a consistent team. Once we get that consistency in the way we want to play and continue on that level throughout the course of the game, we'll turn things around. The problem with inconsistency is that's what bad teams are, right? Like, oh, we're just inconsistent right now. Yeah, that's another word is just saying bad. Because if you've won, let's say 10 out of 20 games, that probably puts you at 500. Yes, that's pretty much the definition of inconsistency. On and off, on and off, on and off. I mean, that's my definition. Sorry, they're not 10 and 20. They're 8 and 12. So, I mean, it may be time to change something up a little bit. A while ago, there were talks. It wasn't talks, but we talked about how Carmelo played really well when he was with other players. Like when he played on Denver and they had a squad, and the 1 year when they played on the New York Knicks and they had a squad. But there was also mention of Olympic Melo. Like, oh, Carmelo played so great in the Olympics. Every time there's the Olympics and Carmelo plays great, we're like, oh my God, he plays so great in the Olympics. Why can't this be in real life? Well, when he plays in the Olympics, he's part of the second unit. So when it comes to being the second unit, you come off, you give the second unit a spark, and next thing you know, you're playing against second unit players on the other team, and maybe the defense isn't as harsh. Maybe it's not as difficult. Maybe you can actually be the leader. Maybe you'll get the ball more since you're on the second unit, right? The only problem with this whole benching Melo and putting him in the second unit and giving the second unit a spark thing is I hear all that. However, isn't that what we did with James Harden? Like, isn't that what happened? Like, didn't they have Westbrook, Durant, and Harden all on one team, and Scott Brooks couldn't figure it out, so he just put James Harden on the bench to give the second lineup a spark? Now, so I don't really know, and I get it. Westbrook is better than he was on that team. Paul George is not Kevin Durant, and Carmelo Anthony isn't James Harden. But I mean, he's a prolific scorer. He's just not scoring right now. So I don't really know if the answer is just putting him on the bench. It could be a coaching issue. If you have that much talent around and you can't find a way to maximize that talent and get the best out of it, I might say it's a coaching problem. I mean, it's benching somebody and creating a more powerful second unit might sound like a great idea, but that just sounds like a bailout for a coach to me. Honestly, if you have defensive schemes that aren't working, if Westbrook has to give up the ball earlier, if you have to talk to Carmelo Anthony about finding his spots faster, then so be it. But as far as just we'll just put you on the bench because we can't figure out what to do with you. I think it sounds kind of silly. It sounds silly because when James Harden was on the bench with OKC, it just looked like a great idea. Like, yeah, he's on the bench. Yeah. And they were doing this thing where James Harden was being compared to Ginobili. Like, that was a stretch because they were both 6 men. But they can't pay James Harden. He goes to the Rockets, and now James Harden he's a demigod. But at just putting Carmelo on the bench, I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be the answer. I don't know if that's going to do it for them. So hopefully they do figure it out. I mean, they're saying they want to put him on the bench and then put Pat Patterson in because he can cut, he can move without the ball. He doesn't have a tremendous scoring average, but they feel like if he doesn't need the ball, it'll maximize the time Westbrook and Paul George have the ball, and that'll give Paul George and Westbrook more possessions because Westbrook needs more possessions, right? Like, so that'll give Westbrook more possessions. Then they'll have like a defensive edge, which would be Steven Adams and Roberson and Patterson, while Westbrook and Paul George can just like run this massive muck, right? Which I mean that in theory it makes sense. You can have like a Celtics type of thing where most of the 5 is playing D, while you got Kyrie and X scoring most of the buckets. I mean, it's a theory that could work. I think maybe you try that later on, because as of right now, if you trade it for Melo and you have Melo on your team with Paul George and Westbrook, you got to just find a way to work that out. And that's just going to be something that you're going to have to do. I mean, I don't really think this is a situation. I don't think this is a Warrior situation where Iguodala is going to be like, hey, I'll sit on the bench because these guys are better than me and it's fine, which was big for the Warriors when Steve Kerr had to ask Iguodala to come off the bench, and it all worked itself out. He ended up getting Finals MVP. So it's a thing that can happen. I'm just not sure if Melo is anywhere near that level of wanting to come off the bench. In the summer, they asked him about it. Like, one of the reporters were like, "Oh, you coming off the bench?" And he laughed. And it's like, ha, 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 ha. Who? Me? No, I'm not in Oklahoma. I didn't move from New York to Oklahoma to come off anybody's bench. And I get it. Like, I hear him. So, I mean, we'll see. We're going to find out what happens with that. Anyway, they're 8-12. I guess it's not really a thing. This is probably us just haunting Melo. Like, this, we just hunt Carmelo wherever he goes. So it could be that. It also could be that he's playing on the team with the reigning MVP that averaged a triple-double last year, and they're worse than they were last year. So it might be something to look at. I appreciate you guys joining me for another episode of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the interview. You can follow us at GSMC_basketball. You live long, prosper, watch out for potholes, and put a coat on, because it's December. It's cold outside. It's 61. I don't know what we're going to do out here in Cali. I'm not 100% sure. You guys take care. Have a good weekend.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.